Hello and a warm welcome to Big Picture. I'm Neelu. Parliament in our polity is the supreme representative institution of the people. And for that very reason, public perceptions about the functioning of Parliament are very important in today's episode. We look at the functioning of Parliament over the last 1 year. Is the Parliament playing its legislative and deliberative role seriously? How serious have been the business transactions in terms of big-ticket debates, legislations, and how can the system be reformed? Joining me now are some of the most credible voices on parliamentary institution. Chakshu, Head of Outreach, PRS Legislative Research; Vinod Sharma, Political Editor, Hindustan Times; Yogendra, Narain, Constitutional Expert and former Secretary General, Rajya Sabha; and also joining us is Vikas, Singh, former Additional Solicitor General of India. Welcome all of you on this edition of Big Picture. I'd like to begin with you, Chakshu. The recent winter session has been seen as one of the least productive sessions in the last 15 years. What is the indication? Where is the future of an institution like Parliament heading to?
Neelu, you're correct. The winter session saw an extremely fractured politics. There was no bipartisanship, so clearly debate in Parliament and deliberation suffered. But public memory is short. I don't think we should, reflect upon the year only on the basis of what happened during the winter session. I think if we look at the year in total, we had 4 really good sessions. There was a number of key legislations that were passed. I go back to the fact as to, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was passed, the Sarfazi Amendment, which makes it easier to recover debts, is passed.
Right.
The GST Constitutional Amendment was finally passed by Rajya Sabha. There were some controversies also. The Aadhaar bill was passed as a money bill. But if we look at, the total work done, there were major debates. There were big ticket legislative reforms that took place after a long time.
Right.
Yes, the Parliament suffered, but that's more of a symptom of a broken down politics and the fact that the principal opposition party and the treasury benches are not able to reconcile differences. Yeah. And that's something that's going to plague our Parliament for years to come.
But Mr. Narain, you also see this as an indication, as what Chakshu is saying, over the last 1 year, not particularly talking about winter session, the way we've seen the opposition and the government clashing with each other over issues, does it also indicate some kind of a mistrust which apparently the government has not been able to establish with the opposition?
I would consider it from another viewpoint.
Okay.
There are the impending elections in various states. So at the time of elections or prior to it, often it happens that the ruling party and the opposition parties try to get to each other's throats on some issue or the other. This time, of course, there was the demonetization issue, and the opposition wanted in the winter session,
right,
a debate based on a mandate which entailed voting, a provision which entailed voting. Government didn't want that. And that is why this whole 20 days almost went off because of the opposition, and 2 days after the when the Augusta Westland deal took place. So these were 2 major issues. But otherwise, if you see the parliamentary functioning as a whole in the last 1 year, then against the 83 bills which have been passed in Parliament since June 2014,
right,
almost 28 bills were passed this year. In the budget session, in the monsoon session, and winter session, of course, only passed 2 bills.
Right.
But we had 15 bills in the monsoon session also, and earlier in the budget session we had another 12 bills. And the main bills, which were the backbone of the economic reforms which government wanted to bring, the GST bill and the Aadhaar bill, were also passed. And I think we should not be pessimistic about parliamentary functioning. It has its up and downs, its volcanic upheavals occasionally because of the fractured polity, as he said. And I think also because of some personal attacks that are now taking place. It shows some immaturity, according to me, amongst the political parties when you go down to personal attacks.
That's a significant point you're making. There's a certain immaturity which is seen in the political class. Mr. Sharma, how would you look at the deliberative and the legislative role of Parliament if you say you take the last 1 year? Has
To
it
be
improved?
honest, I would not like to make our parliamentarians complacent.
Okay.
I mean, if they have not worked in one session, they need to be lammed. For the simple reason that demonetization was an unprecedented step by the government.
Right.
And it had an unprecedented impact on the people of this country. I don't want to sit in judgment over the do's and don'ts and good things and bad things of this move. But for a parliament not to debate when people are suffering at large, and for the government not to come up with a statement, even a statement, delineating the reasons and why this was important for economy, why this was important for eliminating black money and counterfeit currency, why this was important for fighting terrorism. There was no statement on the floor of the House. So the institutional memory of India, which is the Parliament of India, which is the lawmaking body, is so much poorer. And what shall the future generation, to what will the future generations refer when they will debate this, discuss this? Will there be PhD thesis? What will they refer to?
Right.
Will they refer to public speeches? I'm sorry. I think that it is the responsibility of every single member who is elected by the sovereign, which is the people, you, me and others, to this highest decision-making body.
Right.
You see, there is a Supreme Court of India, but the supreme institution of India is the Parliament of India. And I think that people should realize their responsibility when they sit in Parliament. It's unfortunate that the public discourse has plummeted to abysmal depths. There is no doubt about it. But then, may I tell you one thing? If there could be an acceptance of the constitutional amendment on GST, why could there not be an acceptance on a minor demand of the opposition,
Right.
which is a voting, a debate under the voting provision?
Right. You made a
because
significant point.
especially when
Right.
the ruling party has full majority in that house.
Right.
What was the problem? Secondly, I remember, during the GST debate, and it was such a happy experience for someone like me. I'm a great votary of parliamentary democracy. I feel very upset when this kind of partisan play of debate and splits up a parliament. That there was at one stage Rahul Gandhi was up on his feet and he was talking and he was being critical of the government, and suddenly the camera panned on an honorable Prime Minister and he had a benign smile flickering on his face. That can do wonders. You see, a smile, a sense of humor
And
can
that is-
disarm the opposition.
Right.
Reaching out to the opposition, that has not happened in this case.
So sense of humor could also be a very big placatory
It
tactic.
is. If as one who's seen Pilu Modi, as one
Exactly.
who's seen Balkavi Bairagi, as one
Right.
who's seen so many, so many bright parliamentarians,
Yeah,
who are
yeah.
institutions in themselves.
Let me bring in Mr. Vikas Singh now. Mr. Singh, how would you look at the deliberative and the legislative role of Parliament over the last 1 year, with the kind of debates which have happened, the number of sittings which have happened, and also the legislations which have been passed? How would you look at the last 1 year?
Well, first of all, I feel that there is nothing to rejoice that we have passed so many bills in this year, and accordingly the Parliament can be said to be given a good report of having done well.
Okay.
I mean, that's their job. It is their job to pass laws, and the fact that they have passed some laws in the year is not something which they can, commend themselves about and say that, yes, we have been able to make the Parliament function properly. That's one.
Okay.
Number two, I feel that BJP has been paid back in its own coin. BJP had done the same thing when Congress was in power. They never let debates to take. They always used to have that obstructionist attitude. So both Congress and BJP are equally at fault, Congress and the BJP and the opposition. Thirdly, when a parliament member sits in the parliament, it is not that particular member in his individual capacity that he is sitting in parliament. He is sitting as a representative of the people. He has no business to stall the functioning by virtue of his individual choice.
Right.
To ensure that the parliament doesn't function. He has a duty cast upon him by virtue of the mandate given to him by his electorate to participate in every deliberation and ensure that whatever he has to say is recorded in the normal functioning of the parliament rather than stalling the parliament.
Right.
And lastly, I feel that a time has come when the election commission should take the record of all the members of parliament, the number of days they attend this session and the number of days they stall the working of this session, and make it mandatory for it to be disclosed at the time of the next election, so that when the people are considering the candidature of that person in the next election, they know how did their member function in the parliament in the 5 years that they had elected him for. Because otherwise, as one of the speakers said, public memory is short. That public memory should not be let to be short. The public memory should be revived. And that should be a very important factor for the people to decide again whether he needs to be re-elected or he needs to be shown the door.
But
so I think this is how I would rate how the parliament has functioned, and I feel that it's highly irresponsible for parliament members to stall the working of the parliament. They should find ways and means to see that their debate is put across within the rules that are there for the parliament functioning, rather than taking the law into their own hands.
That's in fact a very big challenge, whether the proper rules are followed or not. I'll like to bring in Mr. Narain here, that the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution had recommended that there should be a minimum number of working days in the parliament. In fact, some assemblies like Orissa Assembly already has done it. Why is the parliament unable to bring in a measure like this?
Because there's no way you can enforce it.
Okay.
There are many rules even now in the rules of procedure of the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, which empower, for example, the presiding officers. It is the duty of the presiding officer to ensure smooth conduct of the parliamentary proceedings. It is the duty of the presiding officers to take action against members who are flouting the rules or who come to the well of the House. But they are unable to do so, or they are not willing to do so because of the political environment they are functioning in. And another thing that has happened is that a member of parliament today is not following his own conscience. He is following what the party is directing him to do. Parliamentary democracy has now become a party democracy. So if the party headquarters of a particular ruling or opposition party decides that today we will stall the proceedings, the individual member can do nothing about it, because with the anti-defection law threatening him, and if he violates the discipline of the party, he is going to be in trouble. So what is happening today is, it's not that the individual member is going to the floor of the House or stalling because he personally feels. If he was made only responsible to his constituency, that will be the best form of parliamentary democracy. But today he is responsible to his party also.
But easier said than done. Mr. Sharma, can a parliamentarian honestly present himself, conduct himself in the House, especially when whips are issued? Though we have seen there have been exceptions in UK Parliament as well. But in Indian context, is it really possible?
This is a debate as old as the hills, or as old as the anti-defection law. Well, anti-defection law is important. It was an important legislation in our country. That, Ayaram and Gayaram, was to some extent curbed. But, I quite agree with Mr. Chandra that, insofar as voting is concerned, whip is fine. But in the course of the debate, if a member of parliament has a point of view which is different from that of his party line, he should be allowed to state. Because, what is the role of an opposition? Actually, it is not to oppose policy of the government, just to oppose policy of the government, but also to provide alternative as to what could be an alternative policy. And that is what you call as a creative discussion. Now, that creative discussion is not happening for one reason, which I believe is a reason which people are not really paying adequate attention to. We do not have any statesman parliamentarian in a country today. We used to have Atalji, we used to have Chandrasekhar, we used to have people like Madhulame, we used to have Indrajit Gupta, we used to, and before that so many of them, all titans, We don't have them. And secondly, I think that the chair is unable to be a bridge between the opposition and the ruling party. And that will happen when the Treasury will make the chair name two dozen odd MPs and suspend them rather than bringing a motion from the government side.
Right.
You just make the speaker do it. And you are painting the speaker in a partisan role. I think these are things which are not done at all. And if you're doing that, you are actually diluting the importance of a key institution, which is also a great instrumentality in bringing the warring sides together by virtue of his or her strength, her gravitas with both sides, and the position he or her holds in the House. But that is not happening. That is not happening because, you see, what makes Parliament function? Who are responsible to make Parliament function? Treasury, the opposition, and the chairs. And it is a collective that will make it happen. But in that collective, the stakes are different.
Right.
It is 80% responsibility of the Treasury because it's the legislative business which suffers, and thereby the people suffer when Parliament is not allowed to function. And then the Speaker, and then the opposition. Opposition too has a stake in making the House function. They have not been elected to disrupt the functioning of the House. They have been elected to add value to the legislation brought by the ruling side by virtue of a proper debate. But it's not happening.
But Chakshu, if you talk about the quality, the canvas and the culture of the debates which are happening, as what Mr. Sharma has just pointed out, that we don't see those kind of statesmen who were existing earlier. Can your PRS, do you have a system by which you rate the debates, maybe over the last 1 year, which has been the most innovative, which has been the most creative debate? Because that also can become an incentive for the parliamentarians, to work, if not at all other factors.
Neelu, I think, the debate in Parliament, depending on the issue, has seen various levels. There are political debates, there are technical debates. But I think over the years, while I worry about the extent of deliberation in the House, I'm a little less worried about the quality of debate. The quality of debate will improve with the kind of people that comes into Parliament, with the kind of support that they have.
Okay.
But I think let's go back to a couple of things, something that Mr. Singh said, Yogendra said, and Vinod was saying. See, parliamentary reform hasn't really taken place. The anti-defection law has come into place, which means that over the last, 3 decades, the political discipline is to interrupt. Right. So with that kind of a discipline, the chair actually becomes, a middle ground where both the political parties are pressurizing the chair for,
but
for their
I'd like to differ a bit on what you're saying. We've seen a cyclical protest. It was the same BJP which was obstructing during Manmohan Singh's rule. Now it's the same BJP which is in the government and the Congress is obstructing. So how can you ensure the nation that you're going to have a healthy debate despite the fact that you have qualitative parliamentarians coming in? Okay, so I don't think our current rules of parliament really provide for a debate which is going to be away from party lines.
Right? The debate will always be structured on party lines. It will never be on technicalities. It will never be on the conscience of the members of parliament. You will get a whip and you'll debate accordingly. So will it, Mr. Sharma, will it not impact the quality of the debates again?
Exactly, I'm saying. You see, unfortunately, the debates make one feel that every party is a monolith.
Right.
No party is a monolith. Even a family is not a monolith, leave alone a political party. And if a party gets painted, and all parties get painted as monoliths, in a democracy, I'm sorry, this kind of uniformity of views has no place in democracy. For instance, I would tell you that the GST debate, it was a wholesome debate.
Right.
And there were parties which had contribution to make to that debate. That look, we are manufacturing states and we shall be losers. What are you going to do to protect our interests? And similarly, we had a wholesome legislation in which everybody participated and it was in national interest. Now, say for instance, on the issue of crop protection, can there be one opinion? Can there be one opinion? Like on abortion, there is not one opinion in the United States, Even within the Republicans, there are pro-abortion and anti-abortion people. Within Democrats, there are pro and anti-abortion people.
Right.
Both conservative and progressive parties have those elements. You know, I think that the institution of whip, the instrumentality of whip, should restrict itself just to the voting and not to debate. Because if it is not covering debate, I will tell you that, you know, from within the party leaders will get such smart viewpoints which they have missed probably. And they'd be so much the gainers.
Right.
But for that, you need a lot of courage and, you know, vision.
I'll supplement Mr. Sharma.
Right, then I'll go to Mr. Singh then.
The
Yeah.
Vice President has actually said that whips should only be issued when the term of the government is in danger.
Right.
Otherwise, you don't need to issue whips. Right? So you can have a debate, but if there is a no confidence motion, you can issue a whip.
But now it's become a little more frequent on
There is a whip on almost every issue.
yeah.
You know, and media is also very much responsible. You know, may I tell you that there was a time, some 2 decades back, that anything that transpired in the Central Hall was never reported, or at least it was never attributed to the Central Hall, to a Central Hall discussion, because the Central Hall was meant as a place where everybody after a bitter debate will come and interact. People from both sides, MPs from both sides will come and interact over a cup of tea and be very honest and fair in what they say. But now, even if something transpiring in the Central Hall gets into the media, being attributed to the Central Hall discussion,
Right.
Which I think is something we are responsible in the media for. And it doesn't contribute to good interaction between opposing viewpoints.
Right. Let me go to Mr. Singh about the fact how you improve the quality of the debates and how you improve parliamentary functioning as an institution. What is your suggestion, one big suggestion?
Well, firstly, the panelists are not aware, under the anti-defection law, there cannot be a whip against debate. The whip can be only for voting in parliament. The only way on which you lose your membership is if you vote contrary to a whip issued by you to vote in a particular manner. You lose your membership also if you join some other party. You lose your membership if you resign, but that's the only way in which you can lose. So there is no whip on debate. You can debate any issue, notwithstanding any whip that your political party may issue to you as far as parliamentary functioning is concerned. And if the parliament members are aware of their legal position, I am sure things will improve. But the larger question, if I may say so, is that all political parties need to re-introspect that what kind of candidates are they selecting.
Right.
The candidates invariably are being selected on such considerations where merit does not play a role at all.
Okay.
I think every political party should ensure that they have some manner of selecting the best particular person available in their constituency, rather than going by the mere fact that he belongs to a particular caste or that he is in a position to manage votes or whatever. That will really be long-term improvement that we can expect in the parliament.
So
because unless the quality of the members improve, there is no way by which the functioning of the parliament can be seen to be
proper scrutiny and screening of the candidates,
in the days to come. And if you see, when a parliament debate is going on an issue,
right,
on an issue like the national NJAC, there all of them combined gang up together because they want to control the judiciary. So it's not as if these people can't combine once in a while to decide a particular issue unanimously, but they always tend to do it only when they are all at one on a particular
I think it's a bad
issue.
example. It was a revenge debate, Mr. Singh. It was a revenge debate against the judiciary. I was a witness to that, and I think that Parliament didn't cover itself exactly with glory, but that kind of debate, you know. I'm sorry, you know. And secondly, sir, with all the respect at my command, you see, a whip on a vote is, of course, there, it's legally there, but when you are debating before voting, you tend to be towing the party line fully. Even otherwise, debates are just on
That is
party
not
line.
the
One
anti-defection
speaker
law.
gets up another gets up making the same point.
Mr. Narain wants to make a point before I quickly wind up
I
the
would
final
like
comments.
to inform Mr. Singh also that as Secretary General, when we allot time to various parties for the debate, you see, because the time is based on the proportional strength of the parties.
Right.
It is from the whip that we ask the names of the speakers.
Right.
And nobody else apart from the names given by the whip are allowed to speak unless there's time left.
Absolutely.
And there's discretion of this presiding officer.
In fact, we can leave this topic for another discussion, I think. But Chakshu, I would like to understand from you this year, now that the railway, the railway budget, the general budget are all going to be merged, how is it really going to impact the legislative agenda of the parliament in the coming session now?
Well, 2 or 3 things would happen. One,
Very quickly.
Very quickly. One, there will be one budget speech with both the union and the railway budget. The railway budget will be examined as part of a demand for grants like any other ministry does.
Okay.
The session's preponed, which means the 3-week cycle, the 3-week break that standing committees get will also get preponed. So you will see a budget session that will start probably at the end of January, which usually starts at the end of February and finish off by about first week of April.
Okay. A quick few seconds comment from both of you before we wind up the show. What is one reason you can look forward to as far as the functioning of Parliament is concerned? Mr. Sharma.
That's the only hope in a parliamentary democracy.
Okay.
That's the only place where you can stand up and speak fearlessly if you're allowed to speak without any consequences and put certain issues in public domain which you otherwise might be scared of putting in public domain.
Okay.
These days it is being said, oh, he's not speaking outside because he's scared of defamation.
Right.
You see, politicians are not scared of defamation. But may I tell you one thing, that they should speak on the floor of the House so that future generations should know what they said at a given point in time in a particular contest and on a particular issue.
Okay. Mr. Narain, especially when we see that the 3 pillars, the judiciary, the executive and the legislature, they are always not seen on the same page on many issues. Is that another reason? I mean, in this context, why should you really feel optimistic about the whole institution?
No parliamentary democracy can survive without a parliament.
Okay.
It's how you improve the working of parliament that matters. And I have 2 suggestions here.
Okay.
One is that there has to be, together with the parliamentary democracy and parliament, a very strong public opinion making body.
Okay.
A very strong media and a strong active NGO movement which can criticize and the working of parliament to make them aware of what the public is feeling. Second, there are certain rules within parliament which need to be recast. For example, this whole debate which went on whether it should be for voting or not, I think Mr. Panda has come out with a very beautiful suggestion in which he has said that if you demand voting, then at least 150 members should stand up and ask for the debate, and that should go in for a debate with voting. But if there are less than 150, we can consider only...
But whether... Right.
Yes. So it's for the parliamentarians to make a rule.
Right.
It is for the Business Advisory Committee. But the discretion which is exercised by the presiding officers has to be minimized because they feel also very odd and awkward in taking decisions suo motu.
Okay. But remember, Parliament is not only a legislative but also a deliberative body, and the institution may be ailing but can be nursed back to health. Strengthening the institution of Parliament is not an impossible task. It requires better imagination and a sustained effort to build consensus. Thanks to all my guests and wishing you, all of you, a great year ahead. Goodbye and thanks for watching.